Prince Harry's latest legal defeat may turn out to be far more damaging than one bad headline or one bruising week in court. It may become one of those moments that exposes the whole structure beneath the Sussex project: the finances, the marriage pressure, the fading commercial value, the conflict with the press, the unresolved royal connection, and the growing sense that Harry's post-royal life has reached a dead end. The case against the publisher of the Daily Mail did not simply fail. According to the commentary surrounding the judgment, it collapsed in a way that left Harry and the other claimants with almost nothing to celebrate. The claimants had gone into court alleging serious wrongdoing by associated newspapers. They wanted accountability, they wanted vindication. Harry especially appeared to see the case as part of his larger war against the British tabloid press. But the outcome was devastating. The discussion around the case repeatedly returned to one extraordinary figure: 97 claims thrown out. That is not a narrow defeat. That is not a symbolic win with some technical losses. That is the kind of result that changes the public conversation. It turns Harry from a man leading a righteous crusade into a man whose judgment is now under serious scrutiny. For years, Harry has presented himself as someone fighting on behalf of truth, privacy, and justice. He has spoken as though the press is not simply intrusive, but corrupt.
Perfectly put, Marcus, perfectly put. Let's start with Prince Harry. So he's lost his case against the publishers of the Daily Mail. It ain't cheap. I think this is the end for Harry. I think financially this is going to break him. I think it's going to break his marriage with Meghan Markle. It's going to put enormous strain on them as a couple and her ambitions. And I think this may be extremely damaging for him and his morale and his relationship with the royal family.
He has connected his legal battles to the pain of losing Princess Diana, to his anger over the treatment of Meghan, and to his belief that the media has behaved unlawfully and irresponsibly. That emotional story has been powerful. It has also been profitable. But a court does not decide cases based on emotion. A court looks for evidence. And in this case, according to the judgment, as discussed by commentators, the evidence did not do what Harry needed it to do. The judge issued a lengthy explanation and found that the claims did not stand. The Daily Mail side argued that stories could have been obtained through ordinary journalism: contacts, sources, tip-offs, conversations, legwork, and the sort of reporting that has always existed around public figures. That is why this defeat matters to journalists far beyond the Daily Mail. If Harry had won even one major part of this case, it could have been used as proof that the newspaper group had acted unlawfully. It could have caused huge reputational damage. It could have encouraged further claims. It might even have strengthened campaigns for more regulation of the press. But because the case failed so dramatically, the opposite happened. The Mail now has its own victory narrative. Journalists who are accused can say they have been vindicated, and Harry's critics can ask whether his war on the press has been driven more by suspicion.
It's very damning. All of it was true. There is no positive spin you can put on this. Even the relentless and ruthless Sussex public relations machine, which never sleeps, has been sleeping, has been silent. Because how do you come back from this? So looking at the finances, well, I've spoken to a legal expert in the United States who suggested that this guy could be on the hook for $10 million.
Whoa.
Now, the court case itself, it ran into, 70, 75 million.
Than proof. That is a very serious problem for him. It is not only legal, it is financial. The costs connected to the case are potentially enormous. Figures being discussed in the source material ranged widely, with suggestions that the overall legal fight may have involved tens of millions across all parties and claimants. One legal view mentioned in the discussion suggested Harry could personally be on the hook for millions. Some commentary put a minimum figure in the low millions, while others feared it could be much higher once all costs are resolved. Whatever the final number, the direction is obvious. This is money Harry cannot casually afford to lose. That is the part of the Sussex story that often gets hidden behind the glamour. People hear Prince and assume endless wealth. They see Montecito, Netflix, book deals, designer clothes, security, celebrity friends, and California sunshine, and they imagine an unlimited bank account. But Harry and Meghan's life is expensive, very expensive. Their Montecito home alone represents a major financial commitment. Security is expensive, staff are expensive, public relations are expensive, travel is expensive, legal action is expensive. Maintaining the image of global relevance is expensive. Estimates in the original conversation.
The finances are a disaster for Harry because it's money he hasn't got. And I think where I would focus financially for Harry, I mean, I spoke to Charlotte Griffiths, who, as you know, is central to this whole story.
Yeah.
It was her evidence in the High Court that pretty much destroyed Harry's case against the Daily Mail. And she joined me on the show yesterday and she said Harry's completely broke. The issue you've got, there's a bit of money left from the inheritance from Diana and the Queen Mother. There's a bit of money left from Spare and the Netflix deal, but the cash flow has stopped.
Suggested that the Sussex lifestyle could easily cost several $1 million a year to maintain. And the central question is this: what is still coming in? The early post-royal years were financially explosive. The Netflix deal, the Spotify arrangement, Spare, the documentary, the Oprah interview, even if not a direct payday in the usual sense, created global attention that helped power the brand. Harry and Meghan had something the market wanted: inside royal conflict. They could sell access to the story of leaving the monarchy, but that well has been draining. The biggest hits they had were based on attacking, explaining, or exposing the royal family. The Netflix documentary worked because people wanted to hear the inside story. Spare sold because people wanted the family secrets. The early interviews worked because the world was still asking what had really happened behind palace walls. But how many times can the same product be sold? That is the commercial danger. Once the first wave of revelations is over, the Sussexes need something new. They need a sustainable business model that does not depend on grievance. Meghan has clearly been trying to build one through lifestyle projects, products, clothing associations, food, jam, honey, rose, and the softer world of California domestic branding. Whatever people think of those ventures.
The financial blood supply has stopped. And now Harry's got to go back to Montecito and explain to Megs that they're going to be minus another few million. I mean, by the way, let me tell you, bare minimum, figure quoted to me from Charlotte Griffiths yesterday, and of course she's at the Daily Mail, minimum £2 million for Harry. Minimum, but I fear it could be more. And so
she is at least trying to create something that looks forward. Harry, by contrast, often appears trapped in the past. His major public identity remains tied to litigation, security disputes, family pain, the press, Diana, and the unresolved wound of leaving the monarchy. That may give him a moral purpose in his own mind, but it does not necessarily create reliable income. And if he is not generating major new money while also spending heavily on legal fights, the pressure builds. That pressure inevitably raises questions about the marriage. No one outside the household knows the real state of Harry and Meghan's relationship. It would be irresponsible to pretend otherwise, but it is fair to say that financial stress changes relationships. It changes power dynamics, it changes patience, it changes the way one partner looks at another partner's decisions. Critics argue that Meghan was willing to support Harry's public role as long as it helped the brand. His royal status gave her global recognition. His family story created commercial opportunity. His emotional narrative made them valuable to platforms and publishers. But if that same public role now produces legal bills, reputational damage, and declining income, the calculation changes. This is why the court defeat may be so destabilizing. Harry may believe he was fighting a virtuous battle. He may believe he was standing up to the press for his mother, his wife.
But yeah, so the issue you've got is that it's going to place strain on the marriage. I believe that Meghan Markle is motivated by several things: power, fame, position, recognition, control, and money.
Yeah.
She loves her dollars because why? Well, money is power, isn't it? So Harry's got to go back to Montecito and go, oh, sorry, Megs, dropped another couple of million. And by the way, very few people have reported this, but we've done it on the Mark Dolan show, that Harry
and his children. But from a household finance perspective, the question is colder. What did it cost? And what did it produce? If the answer is millions spent, a humiliating judgment, and no meaningful victory, then Meghan may not see romance or principle. She may see risk. That is not to say divorce is imminent. It is not to say the marriage is over, but it is to say that the practical strains are obvious. If one partner is focused on building a lifestyle brand while the other keeps returning to expensive legal battles, the two agendas begin to pull apart. The source discussion also raised Harry's previous legal action against the Mail on Sunday, connected to reporting around his request for royal security. He withdrew that case in January 2024 and reportedly faced significant costs there as well. That matters because it shows a pattern. This is not one isolated legal gamble. Harry has repeatedly entered legal battles with confidence, only to face serious financial consequences when the cases do not deliver what he hoped. That creates a reputational problem with lawyers, business partners, and the public. At some point, people begin asking whether Harry is being badly advised, whether he is ignoring good advice, or whether his anger at the press has overwhelmed his strategic judgment. The financial question leads naturally to the Montecito lifestyle.
Is still paying for his last failed legal action against the Daily Mail. This was the Mail on Sunday, which is, as you know, the sister paper.
Yeah.
He pulled out of a legal action against the Mail in January 2024. And that was based around the Mail's reporting of his request for royal security.
Yes.
And he went into that like a bull in a china shop and then changed his mind because, as with this case, it was weak, feeble evidence. That cost him $1 million.
If Harry and Meghan were an ordinary couple under financial pressure, the obvious advice would be simple. Spend less, downsize, sell the enormous mansion, move somewhere more practical, reduce overheads. Live below your means. Build income slowly. Stop taking massive legal risks. Choose stability over image. But the Sussexes are not an ordinary couple, and image is part of the product. Montecito is not only a place to live, it is a statement. It places them near a world of celebrity, wealth, influence, and American aspiration. It says they are not merely ex-royals hiding from the press. They are global players. They are neighbors of famous people. They belong in the same conversation as Hollywood, streaming platforms, billionaires, and elite American culture. That is Meghan's world, far more than Harry's. Harry has often seemed more suited to a simpler life. Many commentators believe he would have been happier somewhere rural, private, and physically grounded. A farm, a ranch, a life around animals, sport, military charities, and outdoor space. There has long been speculation that he once imagined a future in a place like South Africa, away from palace pressure and celebrity circles. Whether or not that was ever realistic, it fits something about Harry's old public image.
Spending money on, look, he thinks it was a virtuous thing to be taken on the press. He doesn't like the press at all, but he's not bringing any money in, which is the problem. That's the real problem now. He's not bringing any cash in. If he wants to spend $4 or $5 million fighting these cases, yeah, he's rich enough to do it. Go for it, mate.
Correct.
But he's not replacing that money with anything. There's nothing. He's not working. Nothing's coming in.
He was not known as a luxury obsessive. He seemed more comfortable with informal settings and practical work than with Hollywood polish. That is the paradox. Harry may not be naturally extravagant, but he is living inside an extravagant structure. Meghan may be more commercially active, but the life they built requires more than small product launches and soft branding. It requires continuous relevance, and relevance is getting harder to maintain without returning to the royal drama. This is why some people believe the couple has only a few possible paths left. The first path is downsizing and genuinely becoming private. They could sell the mansion, reduce their costs, stop fighting expensive legal battles, and build quieter lives around charity, limited media work, and family. That would be sensible. It would also require them to accept a much lower public profile, which may be difficult for a couple whose entire post-royal identity has depended on visibility. The second path is returning in some form to the royal fold. In theory, this would solve several practical problems. Security would be handled, accommodation would be handled, status would be restored. Harry would have a role, a schedule, and a structure. He would no longer need to invent a public purpose from lawsuits and media projects. But in reality, this path looks almost impossible.
And I can't see where he's going to get his next big cash gig from, because we know with Netflix, they've given him a few things. It ain't, none of it is like, oh, wow, this is going to be massive. There's nothing like that for them. The biggest thing they ever had was the documentary of Harry and Meghan slagging off the royal family. That's all that's worked for them. Nothing else has worked since. So I just don't see how he himself is going to bring in cash. Meghan's bringing.
The British public would be deeply skeptical. The palace would be cautious. Queen Camilla would have no reason to welcome more Sussex turbulence after what Harry wrote about her in Spare. And above all, Prince William would be the gatekeeper. William's position matters more than ever. King Charles may be a father first in private, and he may be more emotionally open to Harry than others in the family. But William is the future king. He has to think institutionally. He has to consider not only his personal hurt, but the precedent. If Harry can attack the family, sell private information, criticize the institution, and then return when money gets tight, what message does that send? According to commentary around the family, William has no appetite for simply letting Harry back in. The brothers' relationship appears badly damaged. Even if Charles allowed some kind of slow return, William would eventually inherit the throne, and any soft landing could be reversed. That makes a full royal comeback unlikely. The third path is the most dangerous. More revelations. If money becomes a serious issue, the commercial temptation will always be there. Another book, another documentary, another round of interviews, another Spare 2, another attempt to sell what remains of the royal story. The first memoir was hugely successful commercially, but costly reputationally. Harry revealed private details about his family, his brother, his father, his stepmother, and his own life in ways that shocked even some people who had sympathy for him.
She's trying.
She's
She's a hustler.
Yeah. Harry is bringing in nothing, really. And that's not his role has never been to be a breadwinner. His role has been to do philanthropy. That's been it.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because that's how he sees his role. But I don't think that's how Meghan sees it, because Meghan is pathologically transactional. And I think she was happy with Harry being Mr. Philanthropy, Mr. Global figure on the world stage, lecturing governments about how much to spend on their military and which countries should be invaded and which shouldn't.
It may have made money, but it burned trust. A second volume could do the same, only with diminishing returns and greater damage. That is the dilemma. If Harry does not reveal more, what does he sell? If he does reveal more, what does he destroy? Penguin Random House or another major publisher might be interested in another book because controversy sells. A streaming platform might be interested in another royal documentary because drama draws viewers. But every new project of that kind would deepen the divide with the royal family and confirm what critics already believe, that the Sussex business model depends on monetizing private royal pain. That is why the court defeat may push the couple into an even tighter corner. When people are financially comfortable, they can make principled choices more easily. When bills rise and income slows, temptation grows. Harry may not want to write another damaging book. He may understand the backlash from Spare. He may know that another round of family attacks would make reconciliation almost impossible. But if the alternative feels like financial humiliation, the calculation could shift. Some commentators argue that King Charles would never let Harry go bankrupt because it would embarrass the royal family. That may be true emotionally and institutionally. A king's son in financial collapse would be a global spectacle. But even if Charles quietly helped in some way, that would create its own problems. Would public money be involved? Would William object?
Yeah.
Meghan was fine with doing that. because he brought the royal pedigree, which helped her brand. And of course, there was a big pile of cash, the inheritance that we mentioned, and selling the family secrets, the book Spare, and the Harry and Meghan documentary. Well, that well has dried up. Yeah. And so I think that Meghan was quite happy to indulge him in this public role until the money stops. And then, as you said, at which point the bills keep coming.
Would Harry and Meghan then be financially dependent on a family they have spent years criticizing? Would assistance come with conditions? Nothing about this is simple. The other major issue is Harry's response to losing. After the judgment, a statement from the claimants described the outcome as a failure of justice and accountability. It said the court's decision was hard to reconcile with common sense or the evidence heard, and it described the result as a whitewash. Although the statement was issued in the name of the group, commentators in the source discussion felt the tone sounded very much like Harry. That reaction matters because it reinforces the central criticism of him. He demands accountability from everyone else, but struggles to accept it himself. If a court rules in his favor, he calls it justice. If a court rules against him, he suggests the system failed. That is not how the rule of law works. A public figure can disagree with a judgment. He can appeal if there are legal grounds. He can express disappointment, but accusing the outcome of being a whitewash without compelling proof risks looking petulant and damaging. It also risks alienating people who might otherwise have sympathy for genuine press abuse. There are real victims of tabloid misconduct. There are people whose phones were hacked, whose privacy was invaded, and whose lives were damaged by illegal reporting.
It's going to be a big problem. And now the other issue you've got, so we've covered the money, and we were saying, $3 to $5 million a year to run their gig. Meghan pulls in what, $1 million a year, $1.5 million? Yeah. So she's helping to slow the bleeding. But how much money does Harry bring in a year? Do you want to come up with a figure now?
I'd say probably, if I'm being kind, maybe $500,000 to $700,000.
So perhaps the couple all in $2 million a year. So they're in deficit already. As we speak.
But when Harry takes a weak or failed case and presents the loss as proof of corruption, he muddies the water. He makes it harder to separate legitimate accountability from personal grievance. That is why this judgment is being described as a victory for journalism. The Daily Mail is not universally loved. It has critics across the political and cultural spectrum. Many people have their own complaints about its tone, methods, headlines, and campaigns. But the question in this case was not whether everyone likes the Mail. The question was whether the allegations were proven, and according to the court, they were not. Journalists watching the case understood the stakes. Good journalism often begins with a tip. A source calls. Someone inside an organization talks. A friend of a friend confirms something. A reporter checks, challenges, contacts representatives, asks for comment, and tries to establish whether a story stands up. The people being reported on often deny it. They may threaten legal action. They may try to intimidate the paper. Sometimes the story is wrong and should not be published. Sometimes the story is right and the denial is false. That is the difficult, messy, necessary work of reporting. The source discussion gave examples from entertainment journalism, stories denied by management teams, threats of legal consequences, and later events proving that the original reporting had been accurate.
For a normal couple, Mark, they would sell the mansion in Montecito, which they don't need to live in.
Bingo.
There's 4 people in that house.
You're right.
And two adults, 2 kids. They don't need to have... They don't need to have that massive mansion. They should downsize. But there's loads of places in California they can live much cheaper than they're doing.
All day long.
And they could go into a skyrise place with a condo with a doorman who's going to be checking everyone who comes in for them, all that kind of stuff. But then that would be too much ego.
The point was not that journalists are always right. They are not. The point was that public figures and their teams often deny true stories because denial is part of public relations. If every denied story is treated as evidence of unlawful journalism, the press cannot function. That is why the judge's reasoning was so important. The fact that a journalist obtained private or uncomfortable information does not automatically mean hacking, blagging, or illegal surveillance took place. Sometimes it means the journalist had sources. Sometimes it means someone close to the subject talked. Sometimes it means basic reporting worked. This is one of Harry's blind spots. He appears to assume that if the press knows something he did not want known, the press must have done something wrong. But royal reporting has always relied on networks. Courtiers, friends, former friends, staff, social circles, publicists, and sometimes even the royals themselves. Diana understood this. Charles's camp understood this. The palace has used briefings for decades, and the Sussexes themselves have often been accused of using friendly outlets when it suits them. That is the contradiction. Harry condemns the media ecosystem, but he and Meghan have also benefited from it. Their story has been told through interviews, documentaries, books, sympathetic magazine features, carefully timed briefings.
5-story building.
Nice.
But when I lived in Dubai, I lived on the 20th floor of a 60-floor building. We had a swimming pool, we had a gymnasium, and we had a doorman. It was nice, it was perfect.
Air conditioning.
Above the clouds. It was great.
The roof needs to be fixed. It's someone else's problem.
Yeah, exactly. Precisely.
So that's what they could do. I mean, that's not a bad idea.
It's not a bad idea at all.
And the other thing that they could do is, stop the press. This is controversial. On the first episode of Mark and JJ.
Go on.
A soon-to-be hit franchise.
Dude, take it there.
They could live.
And supportive American outlets. They know the power of media. They use it. But when coverage turns negative, they present themselves as victims of the very machine they continue to feed. This is also where Meghan's public image becomes relevant. Critics argue that Meghan often speaks about compassion, family, and values while remaining distant from her own father, Thomas Markle. In the Source discussion, this was raised in connection with Thomas Markle's reported health struggles in the Philippines. That family situation is complicated and painful, and no outsider knows every private detail. But the public contrast is obvious. Meghan sells warmth and family-centered branding, while one of the most visible stories around her own family remains estrangement. Again, the issue is not that public figures must have perfect private lives. The issue is consistency. Harry and Meghan are criticized so intensely because they have built their brand around values, compassion, truth, accountability, family, privacy, healing, service, and justice. Once a public figure uses those words as brand pillars, the public will compare the words to the behavior. If the gap grows too wide, trust erodes. That erosion is now visible. The court defeat intensifies every existing doubt. It makes Harry look less like a warrior.
The royal fold. I think it's unlikely because you have the ultimate gatekeeper, who is William. Charles is impossibly weak. He's a lovely, decent, kindly man, but he's got no backbone and he's not stood up to Harry. So he might yield, but William won't. And I think what you've got with William is already pressure on his old man not to let Harry too close. So the idea that he would give that his blessing is for the birds. And the other issue is that when the king passes, which is hopefully many years from now, if Harry were to be closer to the royal fold, he'll be pushed straight back out of it by William, who, I have it from my insiders, effing detests his brother, not my language, my insider, no longer siblings.
Yeah, it's terrible.
And despises his brother is another one. So I think, yes, that is the fix.
And more like a man chasing a vendetta. It makes the Sussex finances look less secure. It makes Meghan's brand look more fragile. It makes a royal return look impossible. It makes another book or documentary look both tempting and destructive. It makes journalists more confident in pushing back. And it makes the palace's silence look wiser than ever. For King Charles, the question is how far this can go before formal action is needed. Harry remains on the royal website in some form. He retains titles. He remains connected to the royal structure in ways that give him prestige. Yet he lives abroad, no longer works for the crown, and continues to challenge institutions connected to the country and monarchy he left behind. That balance looks more awkward with every passing month. If Charles does nothing, critics say he is being weak. If he acts too strongly, others will say he is punishing his son. But the monarchy cannot live forever inside ambiguity. It has to make clear who represents the crown and who does not. Harry and Meghan cannot be private citizens when convenient, royal figures when useful, victims when criticized, campaigners when selling projects, and family members when seeking sympathy. At some point, a line has to be drawn. The late Queen understood that with the half-in, half-out decision. The challenge for Charles is that the emotional reality.
It says that if you're at war with someone, pretend you're weaker than you are. Mm-hmm. It's one of those, and then bang, you get them.
Yeah.
The element of surprise is a big one with the art of war. The other one is don't start a war that you can't definitely win. You don't start a war unless you're sure you can win. Donald Trump, Iran. It's going to take 3 days. So, and then the other big one is that, the worst enemy is the one that's in a corner with nothing to lose.
Is harder for him. Harry is not an abstract problem. He is his son. But the crown cannot be governed only by parental feeling. It must also protect its own credibility. William appears to understand that more sharply. As future king, he cannot afford endless Sussex instability. He has watched private family conversations become material. He has watched accusations travel around the world. He has watched Harry criticize Camilla, Catherine, the palace, the press, and the institution. From William's perspective, trust is not restored by a phone call or a meeting. It is restored by years of restraint. Harry has not shown that restraint yet. That is why the financial pressure is so dangerous. A restrained Harry would step back after this defeat. He would stop fighting expensive symbolic battles. He would protect Invictus from personal drama. He would keep his children out of public strategy. He would avoid another memoir. He would accept a smaller, quieter life. But a financially pressured Harry may do the opposite. He may fight harder. He may appeal. He may issue more statements. He may blame the system. He may look for another commercial project. He may revive old family stories. He may decide that if his old world has rejected him, he has nothing left to lose. And that is what should worry the royal family most.
2. This time it's personal. A follow-up to the original book. Harry is so broke and so desperate. Can I assure you that Penguin Random House would buy that book? Are you telling me that Harry doesn't call his literary agent and say, I've got the second volume? Are you telling me that there's not a bidding war?
Well, we know that from the first edition, there was a lot of stuff that was left on the cutting room floor.
Correct.
He's got enough ammunition for a second book, but I don't think...
A cornered public figure with royal secrets, financial strain, wounded pride, and declining options can become unpredictable. That does not mean Harry will choose the most destructive path, but the incentives are there. And the Sussex brand has already shown that private pain can be turned into public content. There is also the question of the other claimants. Harry was the most famous face of this case in royal terms, but he was not alone. Figures such as Sir Elton John, David Furnish, Elizabeth Hurley, Sadie Frost, and Baroness Doreen Lawrence were part of the wider action. That matters because the case did not only create consequences for Harry, it also pulled other public figures into a legal battle that has now ended in embarrassment. Some of them may be better able to absorb the financial consequences than others. Elton John is an extraordinarily wealthy and successful global star. Elizabeth Hurley is a long-established celebrity. But Baroness Doreen Lawrence occupies a very different place in British public life. She is known above all as the mother of Stephen Lawrence, whose racist murder became one of the defining British justice stories of the late 20th century. The Daily Mail's campaign around Stephen Lawrence's killers remains one of the paper's most famous and consequential campaigns. That history made her involvement in this case especially sensitive. Critics asked why someone connected to such an important Mail campaign would now be part of a legal action against the same newspaper group.
Neither. The fact that this court has chosen to dismiss our case represents an inconsistency which is hard to understand or reconcile with common sense or the evidence heard in the courtroom itself. And wait for this. If this isn't pure Harry, I don't know what is. It is a complete and obvious whitewash, but sadly not altogether unexpected. However, the lengths to which the court has gone to exonerate the male is as shocking as it is totally unwarranted. Now, if that doesn't sound like the words of a spoiled royal crybaby, I don't know what is.
Look, Harry's taken the brunt of this case.
Supporters of Baroness Lawrence would argue that she has her own experiences and her own right to seek legal redress if she believes she was wronged. But whatever view one takes, the optics are complicated. The whole group now has to live with the same public question. Were they badly advised, or did they allow anger at the press to outrun the evidence? That is an uncomfortable question for anyone. For Harry, it is especially damaging because he has made media accountability one of the central causes of his adult life. For the other claimants, the defeat may be humiliating, expensive, and inconvenient. For Harry, it threatens his identity. Charlotte Griffiths is another key figure in the story. According to the discussion around the case, her evidence was important in undermining Harry's claims. She was not presented as a shadowy figure using unlawful methods, but as a journalist with contacts, relationships, and legitimate ways of finding information. That is precisely the point Harry seems to struggle with. He often treats the existence of a story as proof that something improper happened. But journalism is not magic. It is relationships, calls, persistence, background knowledge, and sources who choose to talk. The uncomfortable part for Harry is that...
Because I don't know what your expectations were. I say it once, I say it 1,000 times. You're 1,000,000% much more of a journalist than I am. But you can't even have imagined that it would have gone that well for the Daily Mail. All 97 claims were thrown out. They didn't even get like some scraps. There was nothing, JJ. Yeah. How is that even possible? Has there ever been a court case where you bring a legal claim against a publisher of a newspaper and 97 claims are thrown out?
That's crazy. There's no way of proving that all of these stories that had been written couldn't have been obtained by just speaking to people, just by doing good basic journalism. So that's why it was all thrown out, unfortunately, for Harry.
This is what you are schooled in. This is what you're trained in.
Yeah.
Been doing for a couple of decades now. Is you walk the hard yards, don't you? You are hammering the phones. You are ringing doorbells. You're speaking to contacts, gathering information. Like you said, old school.
Some of those sources may have been close to him or close to his world. A story can feel like a violation without being illegally obtained. It can be embarrassing, unwanted, and intrusive, and still not be criminal. That distinction is essential, and the court appears to have treated it as essential. This distinction also matters for every journalist covering powerful people. If a reporter has to fear that every disliked story could trigger a ruinously expensive legal campaign from a wealthy public figure, then reporting becomes timid. Editors hesitate. Sources are ignored. Stories of real public interest never appear. The public loses information because the legal risk becomes too high. That is why some journalists see this judgment as a moment of relief. It tells them that if they do the work properly, if they source stories lawfully, if they can explain the reporting process, then a powerful claimant cannot simply assume misconduct and win. That does not give journalists permission to behave recklessly. It simply protects the basic idea that lawful reporting is not a crime. The irony is that Harry, who says he wants accountability, may have accidentally strengthened the hand of the press he was trying to weaken. By bringing a case that failed so dramatically, he gave the Daily Mail and other journalists a powerful response to future claims. They can now point to this case and say accusations are not evidence.
And do you not think that this verdict is a victory, not just for the Daily Mail, but journalists worldwide?
In general, I think so. But I can think of two examples come to my head straight away. One, Jumbo Little Mix.
Yeah, of course they do. Great band.
Yeah, one of the singers in that.
Up there with the Beatles.
They wish. Jesse, I'd been told was going to quit the band. I'd contact the management and said to them, hey, Jesse's leaving, I want a statement. They denied it. They threatened to sue me if I released that article. Yeah. A week later.
Suspicion is not proof, and disliking a story does not make it unlawful. That is a major shift. It may also change the way Harry is covered from now on. Some outlets may feel less intimidated. Some commentators may feel more confident. Some journalists may believe the legal threat around Harry has lost some of its force. If that happens, the defeat will not only cost Harry money, it will reduce his ability to control the conversation. And control has always been central to the Sussex project. Harry and Meghan do not object to attention itself. They object to attention they cannot manage. They have used major platforms when the terms suited them. Oprah, Netflix, Spotify, Spare, friendly magazine features, carefully placed briefings, and sympathetic interviews. The problem comes when the press asks harder questions, reports contradictions, or highlights behavior that does not fit the preferred image. That is when criticism becomes hate. That is when scrutiny becomes persecution. That is when a negative story becomes evidence of a system out to destroy them. But a public figure cannot build a global brand and then demand only admiration. Once you sell a story, people are allowed to question it. Once you make family values part of your image, people are allowed to ask about your own family relationships. Once you make privacy part of your identity, people are allowed to notice the interviews and documentaries.
Their front page following this verdict was that what Harry was trying to do, in their view, was destroy the Daily Mail. And you can't have that, because we've seen with the likes of Harry and Meghan, public pronouncements which are very different to their actions and their behaviour. And it's critical. And that's hopefully what we're going to do on Mark and JJ.
Absolutely.
You call out the double standards of these people.
Yep.
With Meghan talking about family values on her little watched TV show, whilst her dear father, Thomas Markle Sr., fights for his life in a Philippines intensive care unit.
Once you make justice part of your campaign, people are allowed to ask what happened when a court rejected your claims. That is the price of public life. And Harry is discovering that the price is rising. So where does this leave him? In the short term, he faces legal and financial consequences. In the medium term, he faces a brand problem. In the long term, he faces an identity crisis. If he is no longer a working royal, no longer a reliable commercial force, no longer a universally sympathetic victim, and no longer a victorious campaigner against the press, then who is he? That is the question behind the headlines. Harry once had a clear role. He was the spare, the soldier prince, the people's prince in training, the informal royal, the founder of Invictus, the brother who balanced William, the grandson who made the Queen smile, the son shaped by Diana's memory. Then he left and tried to become something else. A global truth teller, a media producer, a mental health advocate, a privacy campaigner, a husband protecting his wife from history repeating itself. But that second role is now fraying. The truth teller has lost credibility in court. The media producer has run out of fresh material. The privacy campaigner keeps living through publicity. The mental health advocate often appears consumed by unresolved anger. The husband protector narrative depends on Meghan being cast as Diana's successor, a comparison many people no longer accept. And the prince who left royalty still needs royalty to remain commercially relevant. That is the collapse underneath the case. The legal defeat did not create all of Harry's problems. It revealed them. It revealed the financial fragility. It revealed the exhaustion of the grievance model. It revealed the limits of attacking the press without proof. It revealed the pressure on the marriage. It revealed the lack of realistic options. It revealed why the palace may need firmer boundaries. And it revealed why journalists, even those critical of the Daily Mail, may see this as a crucial moment for press freedom. Harry can still recover, but not by doing more of the same. He cannot sue his way back to trust. He cannot complain his way back to public affection. He cannot monetize another round of family pain without paying a deeper price. He cannot keep blaming everyone else for outcomes he helped create. He cannot demand accountability while rejecting it when it arrives. The path forward would be humbler and quieter. Accept the defeat, pay the bills, stop escalating, protect Invictus, reduce the lifestyle pressure, stop using the children as part of public narratives. Make peace privately with the fact that the royal family may never fully trust him again. Build something useful that does not depend on attacking the past. That would be difficult. It would also be the first genuinely adult move Harry has made in a long time. Because right now, the public sees a man who had every advantage, lost a major battle, and still seems unable to ask whether he might have been wrong. And if he cannot ask that question, the next chapter may be even more damaging than the last.